Rivals 2 is just about to expand its cast, with Endless dropping early next week. I wanted to make a quick discussion video chatting about what makes a character unhealthy or over-centralized, how patches can and have fixed characters, character diversity, and what the future DLC fighters should be mindful of when being added, as well as some game mechanics that could be changed to make the game healthier long term. If any of these topics stand out to you, I left bookmarks all throughout this video, so feel free to skip around. I also want to preface this video acknowledging the quality of the game dev team and the work they've put into getting the game to feel as good as it is. However, in this video, I will be bringing up things that I find to be slightly unbalanced or over-centralizing, and while I'm sure they will get patched over time, I just don't think they're in the best state right now. To start, let's define what an unhealthy part of a kit actually looks like. In my opinion, an unhealthy move is a move that has little or no counterplay, or a move that can be applied in most situations, even if another move could be used instead. I think Rano is an easy example of this, since his forward air is decently safe on shield, large, which means you can whiff it and still be safe in most cases, fast, so you can use it on reaction to opponent's movement, not too laggy, so you can combo off the sweet spot, kills at early percents, both by sending out or with the sweet spot to spike. It also sends opponents deep off stage, forcing them to get ledge guarded and possibly get hit by the move again, and easily combos out of his other options, with only small room for DI mix. Obviously, with all these strengths in mind, the move is seen as really strong and a must-use for Rano, even in spots where you'd think Rano would be more favorable to use an up air to juggle or kill. He commonly opts to use the forward air instead, since it's both easier to use and nets more reward in most cases. Obviously, there's a level of nuance to this where Rano can't get away with only using forward air, but I'd argue that this is a case of a move being slightly too strong, impacting the rest of Rano's expressiveness. I think an obvious solution would be to take a little power from the forward air and spread it around his kit, maybe make the up air a little bit better at juggling or killing, so he has to pick an option a bit more carefully out of down tilt. Really quickly before we move on, it'd mean the world if you left a like or comment for the algorithm. I'm funding my local events with the money made from these videos, so any help would mean a ton. Thanks for all the support so far on the channel, and I wouldn't be able to do this without y'all. Let's get back to the video. Now that we know what an unhealthy or overtuned move looks like, let's talk about what a healthy, strong move looks like. When making this video, I talked with my Discord community for moves that they felt were over-centralizing in a kit, and Zetterburn's Shine came up a lot. I'd argue, however, that even though this move is really strong, it's not a problem in Zetter's kit. Sure, it could arguably use micro nerfs to its end lag, even though it's not something I would do if I was in charge of balancing personally, but this move is what gives Zetterburn so much expressiveness and shield pressure, and what makes his gameplay loop fun for the Zetter player and unique to fight against. There's also some forms of counterplay that can be applied against this move, since Zetter does have to get super up close to the opponent to actually land it, and the move can be CC'd, meaning that if you use your spacing and play more patiently to make the option less potent, it won't work as well. You'll never see me doing this, of course, because I love to mash, but that's why you'll probably see a lot of clips of me getting run over by Zetter. This level of counterplay, I'd argue, is healthy, since it makes the move feel strong, but makes it to where it's only strong in the certain conditions that it's meant to be used, while also not taking away from the creativity and fluidness of the move. I think if you wanted to make Zetter's pressure feel a bit less oppressive, changes like lowering the universal parry timer or making down air feel less safe and neutral might be a better place to start. A good example of making a kit less oppressive can be seen with Orcane. In December, Orcane got a lot of nerfs to add more counterplay to his bubbles, with parry timing for projectiles being brought down to 3 frames instead of the previous 6. However, this patch also brought nerfs to Orcane's numbers, making both Droplet and Puddle much less safe, and less interesting to use. Not only did he lose access to combos and kill confirms, he also just felt clunky overall. This forced Orcane to play more scrappy and brawly, making him feel like a side grade at best to characters like Zetterburn and Braster, since the tools that made him unique were no longer viable. Orcane is in a solid spot now, but it took about a month to fix, which is why I think small changes over time are best for the game, seeing that we are getting a balance patch every 2 weeks or so. Changes like these can help a character feel strong while removing an oppressive part of their kit, and giving players time to adapt. A good example of this is Crag. He got his back air tuned both during beta launch and the early launch period of the game, making it less safe and forcing him to pick other options in neutral, while keeping back air a safe tool when fully spaced or when used correctly. His rock also got similar tuning, keeping it from being a zero to death machine, but keeping it a strong tool for Crag to rely on in a lot of different spaces. I think these changes are more or less a perfect example of good balance, since they were small changes and kept Crag's kit interesting without removing his options. But this also meant that he had to be a lot more particular about when he picked those options, and overall raising the skill floor of the character without limiting what made him fun. This is where my concern for the DLC fighters come in, however. Are all the characters in the base roster in their final balance state? Definitely not. And they can get better over time, even with DLC being added. However, what I'm the most worried about is that DLC might not feel super unique, and they might not bring a lot new to the cast in the first few characters. Currently, character diversity in Rivals 2 is just okay. We have Zetterburn, Raster, Maple, and Rano who all want to brawl and scrap, which is super fun, don't get me wrong, and obviously they're not carbon copies of each other, but they all have a similar game plan, being to get in close, find a combo starter, do big damage with that combo, and then either set up into a strong or spike off stage. Orcane and Fleet feel similar in the idea that they're both zoner-esque fighters, but neither of them really have zoning tools like a character like Absa or Eliana would. I will however note that when it comes to the sorties and heavies, there's pretty good diversity, especially when you include Edalis' upcoming launch. Having a quick, fast sortie like Clarin compares really nice to having the option to choose a more thoughtful, disjoint-based character like Forceburn, and a slower heavyweight sortie like Loxodont. The heavies also feel like there's a lot of diversity, since Crag, Lox, and the soon-to-release Edalis all have really unique mechanics that make them play really differently. Obviously, the brawlers I mentioned earlier all feel really unique compared to each other, but I think that uniqueness doesn't go quite as far as I'd like. This is most notably seen when you consider that Maple's the only one of these characters who has any form of long-term juggling, and Raster's the only one that really mixes up the traditional gameplay loop. Especially when you see characters in other archetypes like Clarin, Edalis, and Fleet doing a lot more to build on top of their archetype, compared to a character like Zetterburn and Rano. However, as much as I have critiqued this, the only solution besides rebalancing Rano's power is just to add more fighters, which we already know is happening, and they'll all be free, which is awesome. I'm personally hoping to see at least one more Zoner-esque character, and a brawler with a bit more of an innovative kit like Olympia this year. But that leads me to my next concern. Will all these fighters be 100% healthy for the game? Obviously, if you're this far into a Rivals 2 discussion video on the niche topic of plat fighter character designs, you probably know what happens in every Smash game with DLC. Characters are tuned up with each launch, adding more and more features, increasing the ease of use and the power level of the character, until players end up with a broken mess all over their top 8 graphics. I personally don't think that this will be as big of a problem for Rivals 2, since even the strongest DLC in Rivals 1 was reined in over time. However, the characters' kits themselves might not be fully healthy for a game. DLC does need to build upon the existing cast, which is why it's probably good that characters like Zetterburn and Rano are already in the game, since they are the simplest designs in the roster. However, if devs go too far and feature creep a character to make them more interesting, that can lead to characters feeling either pointless from the base roster, or characters feeling like a must-pick from the DLC cast. I personally love the super over-the-top designs that Rivals brings to its characters. Palm stands out as a really unique take on a character with a float mechanic. However, there are times where she's really frustrating to fight, since on top of her float, she has great zoning, combos, and kill power. I'd hope that the Rivals team reels this in a little bit and tames some of the designs, so that they feel unique and expressive, but not annoying or unfair when you stack multiple strengths into one tiny little package. I personally believe they will, and I fully trust the team since they've already put out multiple patches addressing gameplay that's not as interactive or interesting, but it is a worry I have nonetheless, after seeing how some characters in Rivals 1 got a bit kooky towards the end and had to be tuned over time. For our last discussion topic, I thought it'd be a shame to talk about the game's health and why I think it'll continue to be healthy without bringing up Whifflag and Whiff punishing. Currently, the game has a big problem. Some moves, like the previously mentioned Zetter down air and Lock's Not Jab or F-tilt, might feel really challenging to whiff punish. I'm personally not 100% sure if applying Whifflag to every move across the board is the correct approach, but I would wonder what making shields weaker and speeding up parry timings would do for the game. Shields right now either feel really strong or really weak. It feels like there's spots where you get mashed on non-stop, and also spots where your opponent can't really challenge shield at all, like when you're shielding on a platform. I wonder if making shields break even quicker would work well with the current shield steal mechanic, being that when you hit shields, you recharge half of the shield damage you do. I think combining this with lowering the parry startup by a few frames would be a cool way to allow players to parry out a shield, or in neutral to force characters like Zetter or Lox to choose their moves more carefully when mindlessly clicking away at you. As now, parry is simply too slow to use against moves like Zetter Burn Dare, so the safest option is to shield. However, Zetter Dare obviously beats shield and can beat CC, meaning that we're back to where we started at this video, with the move fitting our description of an unhealthy option for the game. But is the move unhealthy, or are the options that you can do to challenge the move unhealthy? I'm not sure. I don't have a fully solid answer, and I'm not a dev at all, but I think the changes I talked about would make defensive play more expressive, since currently I rarely find myself using parry outside of blocking a projectile, and in my opinion, it's one of the coolest defensive fighting game mechanics. Really quickly, let's touch on Whifflag again since I didn't fully cover it. I do wonder if adding Whifflag to moves meant to be high risk, high reward would be the best place to start, or if allowing moves to cancel on hit, similar to a traditional fighter, would be better. The devs have a lot of options here, I imagine, and I'd really like to see them play around with them all. However, since the devs have already commented on the struggles of implementing Whifflag, I'm really not sure where we'll go from here exactly. For our last topic, I did want to chat about reversed hits. I think they're super fun to land and to combo with, but they can feel really cheap to kill with, especially when they're either non-intentional or opponents can't see them coming. A few moves that do this that come to mind are Crag forward air and Forsburn back air, but there's a lot of moves that have this problem. I think a good solution would be to add a few extra frames of either hit pause, or find some way to allow these moves to be more DIable on reaction. It's a really big bummer dying extra early to a move since you held the wrong direction thinking you'd get hit the other way. I don't find these moves to be uniquely unhealthy, like the moves we talked about at the start of the video, since using them to combo or lining up for a cheeky reverse hit of Bear with Fleet is really sick. But I think adding some form of universal DI change to these moves in particular would help them go from oops, haha, I won, to feeling like a real option with real counterplay. If you made it this far in the video, thanks so much for watching! Sorry for this one being a little bit less structured than the others. These topics are a lot more broad and nuanced than what I normally cover, and I might have missed something that you consider unhealthy for the game. Let me know in the comments what I got right or what I got wrong. Thanks tons for watching, and I can't wait to play Edalus with all of you next week. See you then.